Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Myself Manjeet Kaur and today we will learn about Dockerfile. So agenda for today is what is Dockerfile, then we will learn what are the Dockerfile directives, and then we will have a small demo while creating a Dockerfile and running it. And then we will talk about dockerignore file as well, because it is very important. When we talk about a Docker file, we also talk about the dockerignore file. Talking about the Docker file, firstly, it is used to build the customized Docker images. This image, it is not necessary that we use the official images that are present on Docker Hub or the Docker registry as it is in our projects. It may be different from that, or we can ignore something from that, or we can add on something to that. So the Docker file is basically a file that is a text file, and it has a name as a Docker file, though it can have another name as well, but this is the default name that a Docker file has. And though it is a text file, but it is to be created without any extensions, so .txt is not to be used when we are creating any Docker file. Next point about the Docker file would be that the Docker uses this file to build the image. Okay, this file is used to build the image by using docker build command, and this Docker file has these instructions or the build instructions that will eventually lead to building an image. Next point is that these images, when these images are composed of layers. So in the demo section, I will show you how these images are composed of layers, and these layers are the files that are generated from the individual commands that are present in the Docker file. So this step I will show you in the demo section. The last point is that once the image is built out of the Docker file, we can run an instance of it, and hence a container would be formed. Talking about the Dockerfile directives, these are basically the commands or the Docker instructions that we will give in the Docker file, and it will eventually lead to form a Docker image. So let's see the first command or the first Docker directive, which is from command, and it is the base image from which the new image will be created. For example, let's see this Docker file. I have stated all of these commands inside this Docker file to give you an example. Like we want an image to be created which is customized, but it is something similar to the Ubuntu image, and hence we are seeing this in the third line, that from and the image name. This is how we will write from Ubuntu. So the base image would be Ubuntu. We can even add tags like the latest one or any specific version of the Ubuntu we need, then we can use that as well. The next is the maintainer directive, which tells the metadata about who owns this image. Like in the fourth line, there is maintainer and then the maintainer's name, who will be maintaining this image. The next is label command, which is similar to that of maintainer, but in label we mention other things as well in order to more specify it, in order to distinguish this image from other images, like how we label our spices at our home, at our kitchen. Similarly, labeling that image would lead to organizing of image in a more specified way. And then there is a work dir directive, which sets where the CMD would be running, or sets where the working directory would be. Like here in the 8th line, there is working directory root home. So all of these commands like run, copy, CMD, empty point would be running at the specified directory. And then we have the run directive, which is the directive used to build an image. So which means that all of these commands, like we have the run apt get update, so this command would be running while we will build our image. So these will result as a part of an image and it will execute during the build time. So what is the build time? When the Docker file is ready, we will write the command docker build, and that is the build time, and this run command will be running in the build time. So the next is the copy directive, which lets you copy your content from your host system to that of an image. So in this command where copy is written, the first path is of that of the host system and the second path is of the image. So it will let you copy the content to the image. Then we have the CMD, which is actually the default argument to the entry point. This line I will explain you while I am explaining entry point. Let's see here the CMD. It provides of a service and that of an argument. So the service is echo, which is print, and it will print hello docker. So docker is the argument. Hello docker is the argument and echo is the service. So CMD has a service and an argument value to it, and eventually when we will run this image, hello docker would be printed or echoed. Now in this line, it is a default argument to entry point as well. So entry point is a command that will always be executed when the container starts. So this CMD would be fed into the entry point echo, and hence when we will run our image, I am cloud enthusiast would be printed out as an output. The next directive is the environment env directive, that is used to set the environment variable, and it will pass and that variable to the all future run commands or the run instructions. Like here we have set an environment variable of path. Then we have the volume directive, which is used to create a mount point, which means that you allow your container to have access to your host computer into some of your folder. Then we create a mount point. Then we have an expose directive that is used to connect the specified ports to enable network within container and host. So your container listens for the connection at the specified exposed ports. Like we have exposed here 8080 port number. Then we have the user directive, which sets the UID to run the next command as. So whenever we run any command after this user directive, those commands would be run as that user. Like we use in Linux sudo command to change that user. Similarly, user directive is used in the Docker files. So creating one directory, make directory, custom images, and then creating a file named Dockerfile, and D must be capital here. The name must be like this. And now with the Vim tool, we will edit this Docker file. So it is very important that you have Vim installed. For that you can do sudo apt-get install Vim. So insert I, and then we will type in from, because we need a base image from which we can make our custom image. Then we will execute a run command in which we will do apt-get update, and we will also apt-get install nginx server, and then we will type in cmd, the command directive, and we will echo learning about Dockerfile, and that's it. We will press escape, then colon, WQ, exclamation mark, and then hit enter. Now we are in custom images where our Docker file is present. Now we will build this file in order to build an image out of it. So for that, docker build -t for the tag, because we want to give a name to our image. Let's say custom image here also. And we will give the path where our Docker file is present. Since we are in the present working directory where the Docker file is present, hence we will type dot and hit enter. So when we hit enter, the build command will run the Docker file in layers, like stepwise. So we know that images are built with the help of layers. So we got something that the command bin/sh apt-get install nginx returned a non-zero code. Why? Because it asked for permission of ours that do you want to continue. They asked yes or no and abort, because we haven't given -y tag when we are creating a Docker file. So insert again. Now here we must give -y if we want to install nginx without any errors. Again building the image. So we haven't got any error, and the image is successfully built, and it is also successfully tagged with the custom image. So we can check our Docker images. So we have an image with the tag custom image name. Now we will run this Docker image as well. So Docker run and then image name. And the step 4th, in which we have given command, we are getting learning about Dockerfile. So we got to know that the difference between run and cmd is that the run results becoming a part of an image, while cmd runs a command when the container is launched. So we are done with the Dockerfile session, in which we learned how to create a Docker file, then build it to form an image, and then run it to form a container. Now we will learn about the dockerignore file, which is used to exclude some files and folders that we don't want in our Docker image. It will prevent large files from being added to the Docker image. It will also exclude unwanted files and some local modules that we don't want them to be copied onto a Docker image. The thing that we must keep in mind is that the dockerignore file must be present in the same directory as that of the Docker file. So what it will do, it will improve the build performance of the Docker image. How? Because the file that we will create using this Docker ignore and the Docker file, it will create a smaller and a secure Docker image. Hence, the performance would be increased. So that's all about the Docker file and the Docker ignore file. So thanks for watching my video and don't forget to subscribe.